Where are my mathematicians at? This episode, we're going to talk about how to have fun with math. And you don't want to miss it. Those tips and strategies to make sure your kids are on track for math. Hi, thank you so much for joining the Falling for Learning podcast. We have this podcast to help parents and caregivers with having the resources, strategies, and tools needed to make sure that their children are on track for learning and to stay on track for success. Okay, so I want to say that yesterday was my last day of work, and
Yes.
I'm feeling tired a little bit, I really want to jump up and get all these things done, and I'm lagging a little bit, but it's
I
fine.
understand. Yeah, you know what? Teacher tired is a whole different level of tired. So that's why we have the whole summer off. We need it to recover and rest.
Yes,
Yeah, I've been
and
off for 3 weeks now. So that's,
way to
I
rub it
feel
in. Way to rub it in. Whatever. No. Yeah, it's great
yeah,
to
but
have
we
our
will get
time off.
there. Make sure you
Yes.
get some sleep, girl. Sleep in. You were up early, super early this morning. I would not have been up at 6 anything. No.
I was
No.
up at 6, but then I went back to sleep. So I had my first nap of the day, you know?
Your mid-morning nap.
Yep.
Love
So then I got up
it.
around 7 and lazed in the bed for a little bit. Anyway,
Good.
I definitely got to be about I got to get back on my exercise game. Do you know I was doing so good? I had gone 100 something days, but then my back went out and then I just really couldn't
Uh,
sustain. So I really want to get back on that because it was all about getting myself exercising every day, even with
mhm.
work, because I feel like I'm one of those worker bees where I'm like, I need to wake up at 5 and work on this lesson plan or uh,
Oh,
grade these papers or do these things or plan for this project. And
mhm.
working out doesn't fit into that. By the time I
Mm,
lift my head up from that screen or from that book or whatever I'm doing, it's time to get
yeah,
into the shower, get ready for work. After work, a lot of times I'm tired. It's like, ugh, I'll go later, and then I never go. So I was really on
right.
a roll of several days, either walking, running, you know, even when I started work and I had was
Mhm.
very early hours, 7 to 3:30. I was on really early hours. I would still get up. But I need to get back to that because I did to physical therapy and stuff, and hopefully I don't have
Mhm.
any more debilitating back, what do
Oh,
you call it?
yeah.
My back going out, so that really sidelined me. So what have you been
Aw.
doing? Yeah, so what have you been doing to take care of
You
yourself?
know, um, well, I get out every day because I have dogs, and they all require a nice long walk. So I just came back from my morning walk. That's why I'm glistening a little bit. Uh, yeah, so I'm definitely getting lots of dog walking time. Um, we're sleeping in though. We're not getting up at the crack, but you can't sleep in too much because it's so hot. You have to get
Mm,
out
you
early,
missed that
like 7:30.
opportunity.
Yeah, because after 10 is just is brutal. And I've been decluttering. I have been going through every closet, every drawer, and just saying, do I need this? And if I don't, it is going in the trash. So we've been doing a lot of decluttering. And look, I have to show you this. In my decluttering, I found I was going to read this to my first graders, but there's some pictures of him with those yellow pants with the cheeks out. So I felt that this probably wasn't school appropriate. Iconic little alphabet journey through his life. So I'm finding all kind of cool things as I declutter, things that I forgot that I had that I needed and loved. But all the other stuff went out on the curb, and within an hour it was all gone. So thank you to the neighbors and friends who just came by and picked up random boxed up junk. We appreciate it. One man's trash is another man's treasure.
All right, I'm glad you made the choice not to show your first graders, the Prince Cheeks. No, just like
Yes, yes. It's really a A through Z book for me. It's for me. You know, it's always good to practice those primary skills. You know,
Mhm.
alphabetizing is so important. Yeah.
Yes. And in addition to alphabetizing being really good is also numbers and numberizing. No, just blank. Today we're going to talk about numbers, math skills, right? Um,
Hmm.
so I have not taught math in a very long time, but I am a math person. I really am want to say that. I don't want to say I'm not a math person. I just don't teach. I don't specialize in teaching math. But
Right.
I'm a math girl. Like I took calculus and I took, pre-algebra and all that in middle
Hmm.
school, algebra in middle school. So I'm a math person. I just
Yeah.
don't teach math, which there's a lot of math people that don't teach math. So, so we'll
Well,
talk.
I would even say that if you're a person, you're a math person because math is everywhere.
I love that. That's a good idea, right? There's just something about math, and I've talked about this before, where people will readily say, "I'm not a math person.
Right.
I don't do math. I don't get math or whatever." And it's so acceptable to say. And my husband was pointing out, like people don't like, "I'm not a reading person. I don't read. I don't really know how to
Hmm.
read. I'm not good at reading." Like it's like you're not gonna hear it, but math, a lot of people feel comfortable saying that, and
Yeah.
I it's sad because it's like I've accepted it, not good at
Right.
it, nothing else
Right.
to say about that.
I have a math brain. Yeah,
Yes.
I've heard that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
So
I think even I grew up with a mathematician. My mom she's worked for McGraw Hill. She's worked for lots of
wow.
publishing companies. She's written math textbooks. She's chaired the camp conference. So she is definitely growing up in our household. She was the math person. She could do math with a pen.
Wow. Wow. So your mom did like math textbooks and all that kind of stuff. What are some of her math textbooks? That's amazing.
She has some books. Let's see, Math in My World.
Math
Uh,
in my world.
in My World.
It's okay.
Yes, yes. She chaired the Texas State math standards. So she's got
Wow.
lots of books about PD for how to meet the standards, and she's like the math guru in our family. She's just always
Wow.
been very math minded. Um, Loves math. She's the person who would say, "I'm not a reading person." She would
Well,
say
she's
that.
not going to say she doesn't know how to read.
She's not gonna say she doesn't know how to read,
There
but
are
she'll say, "I'm not
people,
a language person.
yeah,
I'm a math person."
I'm specifically talking about people who are like, I don't know how to do math. I'm not a math, right? You're not going to hear, I don't know how to read. Even if they don't know how to read, it's just not something that you openly
Right.
share, right?
Exactly. But even but my mom, it was always very interesting to see how she's got a very good way to visualize numbers, and she can do math in her head. She's very, I always looked at her and thought, man, I am not as good as my mom in math. I didn't get that gene. It was always a little bit more work for me. Um, but I think as I started to understand, this is as an adult
Hmm.
reflecting, I started to understand my education journey. I realized that a belief system is really maybe one of the most important factors in how you view yourself in terms of a learner. Whether it's
Mm,
math or language arts or anything. It's just
right.
the belief that you come into the space with about who you are as a learner, which makes really all the difference. So,
Well, yeah. Good point. Good point. So, yeah, as we're listening, parents and educators, like let's really think about, how we are sharing that belief with our kids? What are we
Mhm.
saying to our kids to help them see themselves as math people? The,
Yeah.
and even you, if you are saying, and I've even heard it like just be like so generalized, like in my family, we aren't good at math, like so
Mhm.
as a kid, if I'm hearing that, it's like, oh, well, I'm not good at math. My mom's not good at it. My
Yep.
auntie, it's like we're not good at
Mhm.
math here. Like we don't do that. And of course, that obviously goes into how much you're trying, right? Like, I'm not going to really put effort in this. I'm not good at it. So, why put
Mhm.
effort in this thing that I'm not good at? And so, we
Yeah.
really have to think in terms of that with our kids. And um, let's talk about some strategies. Like, what are some things that, that you do with your students or with
Mhm.
yourself for math that help kids love math, be involved with it?
Yeah, I think a couple of things. I think knowing that we have kids that come in to, school thinking I'm not a math person.
Yeah.
You do a little survey at the beginning of the year, and you have kids who are the math kids and kids who are the language arts kids. So knowing that I have lots of different types of learners, I always want to think about my classroom culture and um, how do I create an environment where the kids who may not feel as confident in math, how can I create a culture for them where they can be successful? And sometimes it just starts with, giving a little bit more pause time. Sometimes
Mm.
we have these kids who are super quick and they know the answer
Yeah.
and they're raising their hands, and
Right.
one kid is, barely got, the number line drawn on their paper, and they're still counting with their
Yeah. For sure.
so definitely pausing and creating different ways where kids can respond, where it's not always the fastest kid, it's not always the kid that got the answer first. Um, I like to create ways where there's multiple ways to show your work,
Yeah.
and giving kids an opportunity to, show it in a way that makes sense to them. Maybe they're going to draw a picture, whereas someone else is going to organize their manipulatives on a 10 frame. Using different
Mm.
types of tools. Maybe a kid is going to verbally talk about it and share with a partner. So just giving kids lots of different ways that they can be successful, and not always rewarding quickness, because I think that can
Yeah.
be a source of a lot of anxiety for kids. You know.
That's a good point. I mean, I was one of the students when I was in high school, for example, like I would ask the most questions in my math class, and like our teacher would basically present the lesson. Then it's like, okay, well, your homework, your assignment is you need to do this amount. Now, if you have any questions you want to ask, like you could work or you could ask questions. And I would just be there asking questions because I needed that time to process and to think through it.
Mhm.
The same thing with the test. For a math test, for sure, I would often be the last person or one of the last people to finish my math test. But I would still often get the highest grade on the test. So I learned not to feel anxious about it or worried about it. Like, oh, Kim is already done, John's done, I'm the only one done. Like, that's fine as long as
Mhm.
I figured it out. So I feel like math for me, for whatever reason, and I know not everyone feels this way, but helping our kids to think through this and feel comfortable with asking questions, feel comfortable with taking their time,
Yes.
because I already had that in me. I mean, I am a super nerd, as I've shared before. But I gave myself the grace to do the test and take time to do the test and not worry that other people were faster at the test.
Right.
But like I found out later, often like, oh, I got a C, I got a D, those kids who were done earlier. And I would have, like I said, it would often happen where I'd have one of the highest grades, sometimes the highest grade on the test. And so that's something else we need to like think about with our kids.
Right.
Yes, we want them to be like automatic with facts and stuff like that, but when they're working out like longer problems and higher level math, they may need just time to process, double check their work,
Yeah.
whatever it is. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
The Rewrite Method and the Rewrite Method Workbook are your go-to resource for helping kids to learn to fall in love with writing. It has the tips, tools, resources, strategies, and skill building activities to help kids fall out of writing hate and into loving to write. Get your book set today.
Yeah. And I often think, kids who have the most anxiety around math, or, they're the most in need of that kind of support. Um, sometimes just giving them an opportunity to talk about the process is very important. Sometimes people are looking for an answer. I hear parents all the time saying, oh, I saw their work and they didn't get the answer right. Like, yeah, they didn't get the answer right. They may have made a calculation
Yeah.
error, but look
Hmm.
at the process. Look at the understanding. They obviously understood the process because they're showing their work. And I teach first grade, so we often have a lot of opportunities to draw what it is that we're experiencing. So
Yeah.
yeah, at the end they miscounted, so there's an error, but the process shows that they were actually on track, and we want to celebrate those things.
Yeah.
So those kids need to feel successful, because math, sometimes I think the concreteness of math, we're trying to reach a final answer, can sometimes be rewarded more than the process of how did you get there. So we like to have lots of conversations around, explaining your answer. Can you explain to another student how you came up with that answer? And even looking at when answers are different, how did this person get this wrong answer? What mistakes did they make? And being able to say, hey, that's common. That's a mistake that even an adult would have made. My kids love it when I say, I've made that mistake before. I've done that before. I've, miscounted my cubes, but because I, didn't line them up in proper order. I just kind of put my finger on each one and counted, and I miscounted. That's a mistake that you can make. So talking about the process, talking about, how they arrived at an answer, and even looking at the misconceptions.
So many good tips that you shared with us for helping kids. Um, what are some things that parents say to you that you feel like you need to address when it comes to math instruction, and like how they're helping their kids at home?
So I think parents probably are not familiar with the new math curriculum. There's lots of different ways that we're approaching math now that I didn't learn math this way. Um, we really focused when I was young. We focused a lot on algorithms and learning to memorize steps, and there wasn't a lot of understanding about why those steps were the way they were. Like long division, you just remembered a little poem, you remembered the steps, and that's what you did.
So that's what
Um,
so that's what you mean when you're talking about algorithms, right?
right,
You're talking about the steps. Just this is the first step, this is the second step, bring it down, carry it. I don't remember
right,
what that is now because I just do it.
right.
Um, but that is what most of us learned when we were
Exactly.
kids. And so,
Right.
how is it different now? How is that different? Like, how
So
are you going to teach math now?
yeah, so we're looking at more, and I don't expect parents to be teachers. I mean, this is a profession where hopefully we have educators that have had development, professional development, and they've gone to school to learn how to teach. So we're not asking parents to become teachers, but I do think there's some mind shifts that parents can have, that, math is everywhere, and we would do well to think about the things that kids already come to school with, like
Mm,
the knowledge that they can just automatically come to class with. I tell parents, what do you have in your house that your kids can just count? And if you could make it fun, kids could spend quite a bit of time just counting and grouping things. And again, I
yeah.
teach the little ones, the little first graders. So, if I got out a container of dice, I will have kids who will be like, oh, I just want to organize them and count them. I want to organize them by color and count them, and tell you how many red die we have and how many white ones and how many green ones. Like, that's just something they enjoy doing.
Mm-hmm.
And I had a student from UCLA that was training the teachers in cognitive guided instruction, which started out with this idea of counting collections. So
Yeah.
she literally came in with a big bin of plastic baggies with all kind of cool stuff to count. Things that kids love, things that glittered, things that sparkled, little gems,
Mm,
stickers, uh, anything you can think of. And basically for 20 minutes before math instruction, the instructional part, the kids would take
right.
out bags, they would just count. And they would
Yeah.
group the things in groups of 10, and sometimes they would organize it by color or organize it by shape. And it really helped them build a strong number sense, and it helped them to find numbers enjoyable. It was something that was high interest for them. Even the third graders. I mean, I would imagine even up to, I didn't teach fourth and fifth, but I know the third graders were even into it. Like, get them some Pokemon cards and let them sort them and count them and say, hey, here's a stack of cards. I need to know how many cards are in here. Yeah, cool. We got it. So, parents could find anything in their home to just give their kids an opportunity to sort and count. I used to do it with pennies. My dad had a big piggy bank that was shaped like a bull, and you'd have to shake it to get the pennies out. And I would, shake out his pennies and count them and see how much money was in there and put it back in. That was really fun for me. Um, so I think that's one easy way. I think another thing parents could do, because I know it's still a part of the a standard that's tested, is to help kids identify coins.
Mm.
And that's not something we do very often, because a lot of parents are, they're swiping,
Yes, a lot of swiping. I don't have
lots
cash.
of swiping going on. Uh, and, kids are not as familiar with coins and dollars and things like that. They're just not there. They don't always know the name of it. They don't always know what it's worth. They've
Yeah.
seen it, but they're not always super familiar. Growing up for, our generation, that's money was, we knew what a dime, a quarter, a nickel. I can't think of a time when I didn't know what a nickel was. Like, we always had change. We always
Yes.
had
Yeah.
something, in the cushions or in the ashtray.
Yes,
But kids are not,
always.
yeah, kids aren't familiar with money. So
That is
even
such
just,
a yeah. That's so important to bring up. Like, I don't
yeah.
think we think about it that much. And like as we're checking in with our kids this summer, you might
Hmm.
realize, oh, Johnny doesn't know this. Keisha doesn't know. Like, so make sure you take that time because
Yeah.
when our worlds shift, then the natural things that we're like, okay, everyone knows that, or they should know that, they don't know because we don't
Yeah.
use it, right along with like the analog clock. Like, how many kids
Exactly.
don't know how to tell time because we don't have those in our homes anymore.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. I have a kid. I wanted to take down my digital clock because I would use estimates. I would say, okay, it would be 10:27, and I might say, okay, boys and girls, it's 10:30, so we need to start cleaning up. And I would have a kid go, it's not 10:30, it's 10:27. So I had to start thinking about, in math, we use a lot of estimates. We use a lot of, it doesn't always have to be exact. And that led to great conversations about the clock and about, Yeah, I can say it's
Yeah.
10:30, even though, see this big hand, see how close it is to the 6? So you can still call that 10:30 because it's an estimate. And we had great conversations. And so now when I say, okay, it's 10:27, Javier won't go, oh no, it's not. It's not 10:30 yet. We don't go to lunch until 10:30. And building in those conversations about, well, we need about 3 minutes to line up and get our snacks, and
Yes,
so I
yes.
think parents can also have intentional conversations about time and about how long things actually take. Like, how
Yeah.
long does it take you to tie your shoes? How long can you hold your breath? Can you hold your breath for hours? Do you hold your breath for minutes? Do you hold your breath for seconds? Like, those are things that you can build into just a normal day, a normal conversation. You don't have to buy
Yeah.
anything. That give kids that edge and that understanding that math is everywhere. And these are kind of
Yeah.
things that are going to show up in the classroom. There will
Yes.
be word problems about these things. And if they've already had a real life experience where they can talk about it and think about it, I think that's always helpful.
Yeah, for sure. And even when we think about just having patience, right? If I know if it's 5 minutes, I'm like, okay, I could deal with 5 minutes, or I could deal with an hour, I could count it down. But yeah, when you're
Mm-hmm.
younger, time is like goes so slow. You're like an hour, 2 hours,
Right.
but and then sometimes when you have to do something and it's like, well, actually it only takes 5 minutes if you do this, and you're like, okay, it's not as bad,
Mm-hmm.
also giving you that perspective in
Yes.
terms of time and numbers and stuff
Yes.
like that.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, so another thing I thought that was really fun dealing with math is like geometry and shapes. So I really liked
Mm-hmm.
that. So I don't know what it was about the shapes and the calculations, but I really liked that type of math.
Yeah.
Um, then the practical application, right? Like if you're gonna put tile on a floor, or if you're gonna put carpet, or you're gonna put those little
Mm-hmm.
tiles of grass when you're landscaping, like those are things that we could talk to kids about, transfer that information.
Oh
Or if
yeah.
we're just gonna put a fence up, right? We're not gonna put everything all over the lawn. We're just doing the outside of the lawn. Um,
Right.
and there's lots of ways we could, like how many books do we need to put around our little fort that we've made in the living room to have a little,
Mm-hmm.
so it's fun things. And
Yeah.
obviously more concrete, like real life examples of like making a fence, putting a string around something,
Mm-hmm.
belt, like how long does your belt have to be as you're getting older, or whatever.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sewing.
I remember I understood percentages. I had to be second, third grade because my mom loved to shop. And
Yes.
I knew that 50% was a greater deal than 15%, even though those two words sound very similar. She would get really excited if it was 50%.
50%.
So I knew that
Woo!
that was a lot. That was a lot of, she was going to be paying a lot less when it was 50% off versus 15%. Um, I know I understood fractions because when we would drive on the freeway and it said, the exit to my grandmother's house is Reed Road, and it would say, you're getting there in 3/4 of a mile. It would be longer than if we were getting there when it said 1/4 of a mile, right?
Right,
So
right.
like those little things I just paid attention to, and my mom would
Mhm.
say, "Oh, we're 3/4 of a mile." I don't know what 3/4 is, but I know that's longer than when it's a fourth of a mile or a half of a mile. I had no idea
Yeah.
what those numbers meant. But when it was time to actually learn fractions, I had a context. I had some place where I would go, oh, that's what those things mean. And it would just make more sense because I'd had a real life experience.
Yeah. And that's another thing we could do is to help kids, like even making sandwiches. We could say half of a
Mm-hmm.
sandwich or 50% of the sandwich, or cut it in quarters or fourths, like
Right.
helping kids know quarters and fourths are the same thing, and help transfer that knowledge to like, okay, 4 quarters is $1, 4 quarters of a sandwich is a whole. Like those are things
Mhm.
also that we could help prepare kids. So then when we're in school saying, okay, a fourth and a quarter and divided by four and all of that, that it has some meaning for them.
Right.
And also, of course, I knew how to do percentages and stuff, but when I was 16, I was working in like a clothing store, and then I learned how to do it mentally, right? Because, like you
Mm-hmm.
said, a quarter off, 25% off, and then I, transferred that to quarter, and I'm like, oh, just divide it by four, and that's the amount off of the price. Or half off. And one of my
Right.
coworkers was helping me to like do the mental math, but I didn't really know how to do the mental math of it until my coworker was teaching me that. And
Yeah.
so those are, going back to shopping, or like you only have $50 to spend on this. So this is
Mm-hmm.
25% off. Do you have enough? Like helping kids to think through that. Something that
Yeah.
they want, right? They may be waiting, okay, as soon as it goes on sale for Christmas or whatever it is.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
There's always sales, Memorial Day sale, whatever the sale is. Like
Right.
if it goes on sale, you can get it
You can
because
get it.
it needs to be 20%. Or if you're saving up money, you could even off also talk about those increments. I have a quarter of the
Mm-hmm.
money saved for my new skirt or whatever it is that they want, my new
Yeah.
game. I have half of the
Yeah.
money saved, have 3 quarters of it saved, whatever. So helping them talk
Mm-hmm.
about numbers in different ways with different representations will also help transfer that knowledge to when they get into a classroom, and all of that. So just helping
Right.
make it real
Right.
world.
Yeah. Math is everywhere. It's everywhere. And I was thinking about, I don't know if you've ever heard of Kids Hub. It's one of those guided drawing YouTube channels. The guy, he takes the kids step by step, shows you how to draw you know, I don't know, anything. They could be a rainbow, a Pokemon, but he talks a lot about shapes. He says draw a triangle here, draw a rectangle here, draw a
Mm,
square here, and he's guiding them through this process of, you know, you know, even spatially, like put it on the top of your paper, put it on the bottom of your paper. So all of those things is art, but it's
hmm.
math. And
Right.
I think about, how easy that would be even to let your child, go to YouTube and, we can probably put that in the show notes.
Yes.
Go to this website and have kids learn how to draw their favorite character using shapes. And he's indirectly teaching them, geometry. So there's so many things that kids can do over the summer that kind of give them a little, boost. So when they
Yes.
go in the classroom, they have they have some type of experience that helps them.
Yeah. Really cool.
Yeah.
Well, we hope that you do something today that gives your child the competitive advantage. We appreciate you watching us. Have a great week.
Yeah. And get some rest.
Rest.
Thanks again for supporting the Falling for Learning podcast. New episodes go live every Saturday at 5 p.m. You can watch us on youtube.com at Falling for Learning, or listen on all major podcast platforms such as Apple, Google, Audible, Spotify, and much more. For more resources, visit fallinginlovewithlearning.com. We really appreciate you. Have a wonderful week.
Yay!
Yay.